So Heart of Thorns, from the first future, that's I got the most excited about the subclasses. What do you guys think? Like, what do you feel, Shin, about the introduction of subclasses? Did you expect that at all?
Can't say I expected them to do it that way. I mean, I was kind of expecting something more like more skills, more weapons, etc. But not that way. Not in the form of subclasses.
Yeah, I think like if you compare it to Guild Wars One, it somewhat looks natural because in Guild Wars One they also had subclasses, and I'm not 100% certain how it fully worked because I only played it for a little bit, but I did see that you had access to certain abilities where you could make anything be ranged if you took the Ranger subclass, and this also kind of then makes sense in Guild Wars 2, having the Ranger having the subclass of Druid now being able to wield staves or staves. I think it's staves, right, in English?
Both are correct.
Okay. Well, staves. I did not expect that at all. I don't know. I just it doesn't feel natural for me. But if you think about it as a druid, as more being of nature, you can kind of see it as a magician, I guess. Then,
Yeah, it's
how what do you think of like the how would they set up those subclasses? Like, how do you feel that's gonna change up the game?
well, like in what regard? Like, are we talking what modes they'll be in? Like what?
Well,
Uh,
will it be available for everyone for every single class?
I would assume so. Well, I'm assuming people have the expansion, but I would assume it would be. I mean,
Well,
I don't
no.
know.
What I mean is like you have for the ranger, you can become a druid. Can a thief take the same subclass as the ranger, or do they have their own specialized subclasses?
Oh, I think they'll have their own separate subclasses. 'Cause that'd be you'd run into some broken stuff at least right now if they had them like that.
What do you think, Choxie? How do you feel about the
Well,
entire subclass system?
I actually said this a whole bunch of times during my stream and everything, but if anything, it looks a lot like RO. If anyone has played RO, basically each class has a subclass. There's two subclasses, and they branch off into a defensive and offensive subclass. So you can play a ranger as a base class, but then you're gonna branch off into either a more offensive, like you get more damaging skills, or you can go off into more defensive skills. So in my regard, a archer would go into a ranger, which will have more offensive skills. Or if you go into the bard class, which is the other branch, is more defensive and supporty. So you can choose from here on. Sure, in it, they're trying to get rid of the whole trinity and everything, but you're gonna have to have some support of some kind of regard. Maybe boon,
That makes actually sense if they
allies.
set it up in that
Yeah,
way. Or well, they right now
yeah,
they gave every class a specific role. Like the guardian is going to be the more sturdy one with not a lot of mobility, but they can hold their grounds, like with blocks and blinds and such.
yeah.
They might actually like follow that though with the subclasses as well. So every class will still have its own kind of specialization, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you want to be more supportive or you want to be more offensive, you have the option with these subclasses.
Okay, yeah, I could see that actually.
Yeah,
Especially
I
with
can
this
see
new
that too.
stronghold thing, it might be crucial to the new game mode. Who knows?
Maybe.
And what do you think, Mayhizzle, about the subclasses system yourself?
It's going to be pretty interesting because I don't think we're going to be locked towards because they showed the ranger subclass, which is essentially the staff. And are we going to be locked to that specific weapon? I don't think so. It'll be interesting to see the type of builds and everything that we come out with um, for the subclasses because in Guild Wars One, it was essentially two professions. You had if you put it in Guild Wars 2 perspective, it was essentially you could be a warrior and a thief. Now, that's kind of OP because then you'd have a warrior going around shadow stepping with 100 blades.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um, I don't know if, and they really haven't said if it's going to be available in PvP. I don't know if I missed it or they didn't mention it at all. But the implementation in PvP will be interesting. Um, I think each subclass is kind of like the best way to explain it is kind of like a deeper connection between your class's roots, I guess. Kind of like, they said for Ranger, it's Druid. For Elementalist, you could probably have a subclass that's aimed towards the elements. Maybe you have a subclass that's just pure fire. Who knows? I don't know. It's one of those things where um, it might be very balanced for PvE, and then for PvP, it could be just total face roll.
Yeah, I could see that. But do you think it will actually change your normal skills also? Imagine, like, if you use a greatsword as a druid, will it have different abilities, or will it still hold the old greatsword abilities?
It could change the weapons that we've had before. We could have brand new weapon skills. Um, I don't know how subclasses will completely work. It could add stats. Um, Maybe it's just a buff that runs on us. Who knows?
I at least hope they will change the animations on the older skills as soon as you get your subclass, so everything becomes druid-like. And we actually have a ranger with us, Potato, and he was like really excited. He didn't even care about the Revenant at all. So, Potato, how do you feel yourself about this entire change in the reveal of staff?
Basically, I'm really worried because how you see a staff as a support weapon. Basically, you don't see it as an aggressive weapon. So I mostly fear that it might go into the condition side, or it will go into the staff elementalist style, which I really want it to be aggressive and not something that is relied on support or conditions. But I would really like to see the specs like going and spreading on, because it's giving you a lot of options when you go into the PvE world, when you do dungeons with people, when you go world versus world, when you go just, I don't know, exploring the world. When you see a person with a class, all you think of is, oh, it might be, I don't know, rifle NG or a condition NG. But this time you can have more options. So you will basically have to check out his utilities. You're gonna have to check out how he plays to see what he is exactly, and not just instantly decide what he is by his appearance.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
I was gonna say that's kind of how it is now, though. I mean, you run across people, and if you can't tell right away, you do have to see how they play a little bit to tell what they are. And so, I mean, it would be just like there would just be more possibilities for what your opponent is.
Yeah, that's the idea. You're gonna have a lot more options because, for example, as you can see, rangers in the world right now, when you see a ranger, you're instantly thinking to yourself, that's either a Zerk longbow ranger, or is it, I don't know, some Condi 8 build. That's basically how you see it. But now you have different options. You have the melee greatsword, which is not common at all. You can barely see those kinds, and you're gonna have the staff one. So you don't know how it's gonna develop.
And also, like, the new utilities, they will bring in more variety. And I hope, like, the new utilities will be all having something with the new Maguma area, where you can see more nature-like, would be amazing. But then again, certain classes don't really fit with the nature aspect. I would, like, love to see elites that are more viable, because every single class has kind of this one elite that's better than everything else, and you see, for every PvPer at least, you see them always using the same elites. So things like that, I hope they balance them out, and also older elites maybe look at them. We have a mortar kit and engineer, and I don't think even in PvE it gets used. It's just an elite that's there, but there's no point of it being there.
No, and if you look at like Elementalist, the useful elite was Fire Greatsword in PvE, and now after the nerf of Fire Greatsword, other than Earth Elemental, what else do you use?
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to see new elites for at least every class that is really viable, both in PvP and PvE.
Oh, even reworking stuff. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Shin.
I was gonna say another thing we need to remember is with these specializations. One thing Colin said when they did the reveal of it is not only is it a heal elites, new weapon, new utilities, whatever, but also new profession mechanics. He said explicitly that there were new profession mechanics tied to these specializations that change how you play. So there's that too. Like, what are they going to do with pets? What are they going to do with in the terms of the ranger? Like, I don't know.
I actually have no idea what to think of it right now. It's very hard to see what ArenaNet wants to do, and I'm actually quite excited to learn more about it. And
Oh, yeah.
We have really small amount of information right now. It's really hard to see what they're gonna come up with.
But that makes it fun, I feel. If you can speculate up ahead and see if things come true or what you think is going to come true, it makes it interesting. But we can already kind of assume that all the new weapons all comes from specializations, not so much as in opening up weapons to classes.
Yeah. I just
So
want to know
as
what
far
Warrior's
as-
getting.
Go ahead, Jen.
I was gonna say, I just want to know what Warrior's getting. I was that during the panel, I was being driven nuts. I'm like, what did Warriors get? What did Warriors get?
Staff Warrior.
I can see it though.
That brings up a good discussion though, because like I would think warriors, it's kind of, it makes sense for warriors to get maybe offhand dagger or even main hand dagger, but main hand dagger doesn't make too much sense. But what do the other classes get?
Well,
And also-
Engineer gets Hammer.
Yeah. Well, it's just like also like what themes could those specializations have?
Well, since they're giving the Revenant the spear, most likely I'm assuming they're gonna give it to the warrior as well.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. We don't have confirmation that we're getting pole arms. You gotta remember that. But I mean,
Everything
lot
is
of-
just a guess.
yeah, there's a lot of hinting at pole arms, and I would not be surprised if Warriors got pole arms if they do exist. But I mean, we don't know on that either.
Oh, would that be a melee weapon, you think? And how would they use it as a melee weapon? Because
Oh,
I could
they're
see
gonna
it as
surprise you.
I could see it as also as a thrown weapon, no?
Well, there might be a throw on it. There could be
Yeah.
like like similar to the Guardian. I think it's Greatsword 5, where you sink someone and then you rip them back. There could be something like that with it, where it's like a javelin on a chain. You throw it, you sink them, and then rip them back with a chain.
Oh, like Darius, yeah.
Yeah.
That pole.
Suddenly they're gonna surprise us with a great axe.
There's that. Yeah, there's that too. Although we didn't see any of those in the trailer, but I don't like it. I'm just trying to think of what themes the warrior specialization could have. Like, I'm trying to think.
But
Yeah,
what?
but I mean, we can already kind of do that.
Yeah, I already noticed like the shout warrior, which is the support warrior. You have the more aggressive warrior, you have the tanky warrior. How would
Yeah.
you else like put it in? The condition warrior is kind of also there.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, what within our theme isn't already being done with warrior? That's where I'm trying to figure out what it is. Because I mean, yeah, we've already got the like the barbarian berserker type thing. We've got the bunkery shield and whatever warrior. We've got the shout heal and banner warrior. I mean, like what? I'm trying to think of what we would have that would completely shift how our profession plays.
I have a feeling you might get the pike, because that, I have a feeling that that could be almost, if you played Guild Wars 1, it'd be similar to the dervish with the amount of cleave that you get from it, but that is more aimed towards like a scythe type of weapon. The pike could be more of a mix of, I want to say bleeding, but then again, pure speculation. But I have a picture that the pike can be a lot of DPS for a warrior.
Yeah, like I could see the new weapon being, if it is polearm, it could be a two-hander that's centered around conditions, because we have one that's based around straight up power damage and we have one that's based around CC, but we don't really have anything that's based around conditions as a two-hander.
Yeah, I actually that's a really good insight. You have it also in one-handed weapons, which you have CC, power, and condition. Like sword
Yeah.
actually can hybrid in power and condition.
Yeah, our main hand sword can be both. Our offhand sword is pretty much solidly condition, and then our offhand axe is solidly power, and our offhand mace is solidly or mostly condition or control.
Yeah.
And the main hands of axe and mace are same thing, control and damage and whatnot. But yeah, two-handers. We've got the hammer for CC, and we've got the greatsword for straight up power. But
Well, you have the rifle that does bleeding, but nobody is gonna use that for bleeding. Or
But
didn't they
actually,
change
no,
that actually? Oh,
yeah, they changed that. It's pure power now. And then the longbow is kind of your hybrid, more condition-oriented thing. But we don't really have. Well, I mean, control. We kind of have that on the longbow too. Like our range options are kind of taken care of.
okay. No, I can see that. Yeah.
It's funny because Colin said that they hinted at the new weapon sets for each class because of the class specialization. You saw a lot of Greatsword Necro NPCs, especially if you're a PvE player or you did the personal story. What's funny is, and right now where I'm standing, Malcor's, there's an NPC that's a skill point that has a sword shield, Mesmer. I don't know if that exists anywhere else as far as other NPC with classes. I thought I saw an elementalist with a main hand sword and offhand dagger. So there's a possibility we could see that.
And how do you feel like about they said, because you guys said the class mechanics will be completely different. So with the mini turrets on the engineer, for example, do you feel like that could be in terms of having abilities with charges like the Mesmer's mantra, but actually with visual cues on it to make it a lot more, I guess at least in PvP, more counter playable, and it shows what the class still has available rather than looking at buffs, of course.
That's a hard one because we don't know. I mean, other than what we saw in the video, if it's an offhand shield for Mesmer, um, you're only going to get what, 2 skills at
Yeah.
the end of your skill bar. So I have a feeling that Mesmer's 5th ability or 4th, whatever they didn't show, could be a reflect. But of course, Mesmers have tons of reflex, and it's really annoying. But I don't know. I don't know how it will match up as far as the new skills to any of the new class or the new specialization.
True. I guess it's just speculation. Sorry, go ahead, Potato.
I think they're gonna add to it like something that has to do with illusions or anything like that, because basically almost every weapon skill that the Mesmer has is summoning something. So I think they're gonna do something to summon, I don't know, an illusion or a phantasm.
An illusion that shield bashes.
Maybe an illusion that shields an area or something. Something similar to the Sanctuary of the Guardian.
Oh, what about this? Like, why necessarily would the specialization only give you 2 new skills with the shield when they get access to it? It could be that the specializations completely change up all of the weapon skills of that class. Like, I could see that very easily in the case of the Elementalist, the Mesmer, or at least in the case of the Mesmer or the classes that don't have as much weapon variety, because you don't have as many combinations of weapons, so it's easier to make more skills that are centered around whatever the focus of that specialization is. So like with the Mesmer, a lot of people are speculating Chronomancer. So maybe like your sword and your scepter and all that, now instead of having these phantasm summons, maybe they don't do that. They don't do phantasm summons like that on everything because it's a different specialization, a different theme.
You already have that, no? Like if you get your offhand weapon, certain skills change, like the 3rd skill. Like with sword and dagger, you have that evade, but if you use sword and pistol, you have a different skill there.
It could be like that, but that's only for thieves right now.
Well,
I don't see the main hand sword for Mesmer as far as the first 2 skills changing. But like Thief, I have a feeling that could happen. But again, like Shin was saying, the specialization could change the entire skill set for each weapon. Who knows? Maybe main hand sword will be a ranged weapon. It sounds absurd, but that could happen.
yeah, especially for Mesmer with the ranged greatsword, like you can easily imagine that.
And who knows? Maybe the specialization will make greatsword melee.
That would be interesting.
Yes, it's like what about like the abilities like the shatters, for example, that would have to change as well then, because they will get crazy Mesmers if they get too much power in terms of melee survivability, because they can just jump on you. Then they already have on the sword 2 right now an immunity, and if they can get free shatters like that because they have utilities that can summon multiple clones, it's gonna be very strong.
if you're gonna change to it's not gonna summon phantasms or illusions or anything like that. It's gonna have to change also the shadows. You're not gonna have a cry of frustration like mind rack. You're not gonna have those things. They're gonna be
Yeah.
replaced with something else.
Yeah, and Colin did say during the thing that it would change profession mechanics. So maybe those shatters are no longer shatters for the Chronomance or whatever. Maybe they turn into something manipulating time for the Mesmer. Maybe it like slows something down or speeds something like we don't know. But it could I could very easily see your shatters turning into something completely different. That like they might not even use clones if they specialize for whatever this other one is.
Your
That's a
clones
lot
could
to
give
think about.
boons.
I I just hope Mesmer will get something like we used to see in the trailer. Slowly release on Guild Wars 2 when the Mesmer was putting I think it was time warp. I don't remember what it was, but every projectile that went through it inside was being slowed down, so giving you an option to dodge it or move from it or anything like that. That could be a nice idea for a Mesmer. I don't know why they didn't really accomplish that.
Maybe they decided it didn't fit and then like, hey, let's use it for Heart of Thorns.
But it would also make it really hard to spot with all the animations happening and the explosions. Like if you have to also pay attention to those projectiles being slow, I think it will be a bit too much. Like I already have a hard time right now in team fights to really, and this is as a person who's been playing the game for so long, it's still hard to see all the animations happening, especially when somebody's being bombed by massive visual cues.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
Okay, well, I think we talked a lot about subclasses. We should move on to the next one. I've also heard about the guild halls during that event, and they said, if I remember correctly, we will be able to progress in those guild halls as a player, but also as a guild, and we can also face new challenges with the guild halls. What do you guys think they mean with that?
Well, if they work anything like how I think they might work very similar to how garrisons work in WoW right now, where you do certain things and you get these like, for example, you do something really challenging. I think it's like you kill all of the bosses on the hardest difficulty, all of the raid bosses, the stuff that's actually really challenging. Once you've gotten all that done, you get this like monument thing that you can just plop down in your garrison, and then you've got that there. There could be stuff like that where you get either entire rooms, you get statues, you get tapestries, you get all these things that you get from like doing certain things on guild missions or doing certain big challenges as a guild, and then you can take that and stick it in your guild hall. You could get expansions to the guild hall itself. You could change how it looks. You could like there's any number of things they could do with this, and it's hard to say, but I could see it working similar to that, where it's you do stuff as a guild and you get these additions or monuments to put in your guild hall.
But like accolades.
Yeah, accolades.
Right.
Kind of like your Hall of Monuments from Guild Wars 1, where it shows your achievements, but it would be a guild-based achievement.
I actually would love if it was like that, because then you just by entering a guild hall, you can see what a guild has achieved, and that sounds actually much better than having to buy the stuff or just spending resources. And I do hope they go that way. Now that you actually got me a lot more excited about guild halls.
Well, in Guild Wars 1, they had it to where you can make your guild hall just like a town outpost. You can have a bank, you can have a guild bank, you can have storage, you can have trading post, you have a merchant there. So there's a possibility where they can do the same. But then again, with the influence points, are we going to be using gold or are we going to be using influence? Do we have to use merits? Then we go back to running guild missions every week, and we have to grind that out until we can get it. Because if you remember how guild missions were when they first came out, it was like the big guilds had the guild challenge and guild puzzle at the very first week, and there were small guilds that had struggled with guild bounty.
But
so
they
hopefully
also
they won't do it the same way.
They also said like a guild hall is much more than what it was in the past, and I assume they're talking about Guild Wars 1 then.
Yeah.
So then we already are getting an upgrade from what Guild Wars 1 has already provided.
Most likely, and it's possible that we could see stuff like, if we get raids in this expansion, we could see like, oh, go out and do this raid, and if you beat it, you can get a trading post and a bunch of other cool rewards that you can open from a chest in your guild hall for everyone in your guild, or a certain amount of weapons. Everyone gets an exotic or something, a house, stuff like that.
Yeah, and like this, the way it's the foundation that they have for guild halls, I could very easily see it feeding into raiding, into the challenging group content that they were talking about, and yeah, I could see the possibilities for this are almost endless.
Didn't they hire a raid person or developer?
Yeah, they did.
Yep.
What do you think, Choxie? Because you're being kind of quiet here.
No, I can't really put any input because I have no idea about guild halls or raiding because I never played WoW or anything.
But
And
wouldn't...
if I think about guild halls, I think about somewhere you can AFK.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much it.
Well,
That's how it
so-
was in Guild Wars
Like
1.
everyone's so hyped about guild halls, and I'm like, isn't that just some place to sit down and look cute?
Well, in Guild Wars 1, it gave people an area to socialize with their guild members. Because right now, if you go Lion's Arch and you start talking in Say Chat, or even in guild chat, you don't get. There's a different connection of socializing with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's better to be like in person, like, hey, how's it going? Not be like, oh, I'm over here in Fractals and you're over there in LA.
Yeah, it's hard.
Not having someone standing there who you're conversing with, it's not as intimate as you would want for a guild to be, because if you're like, hey everyone, hi, in guild chat, and everyone's out doing their own thing, you can be so focused on what you're doing that you don't get a response, or they can be so focused on doing something that you don't get a response, and then you feel like they're ignoring you or whatever, and it causes all these social rifts or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're both in the same spot and you can focus on the conversation, on the socializing, then it's a lot more friendly. It's a lot more of a guild-like situation.
Right, because in its current state, this feels like fragmented. Everyone's just all over the place, and sometimes some people just don't even talk at all, or even leave the guild.
I actually would love to have an area like that. I agree with the socializing part. Like right now, I feel I just PM people that if we're gonna do something, we'll PM them and then we can go. But there's never a place where I can just chill down. But that's also right now how it is with SPVP. I can't really leave the area either, so I can't, in my downtime while I'm queuing up, I can't be in my guild hall. So I hope they change that around as well, so we can actually have a good AFK point. Because I wouldn't mind during queue times to be in guild hall then with my guild members.
Yeah, and there is a possibility that they could have, it's a long shot, but mini games. They could have mini games in your guild hall, kind of like, I don't know if they could do it, but maybe like a small tower defense kind of thing where, oh no, someone invades your guild hall and you just defend it while you're waiting for a queue or while you're waiting for something else.
Probably not.
Well, they need to fix that also for events. So right now you can't, like a lot of like the Winter's Day events, I could never join with my friends. We had to join the same event 100 times and then hope that we were in the same instance. So they need to optimize that first.
Polymock.
Yeah, Polymock.
What is that? I've never heard of that.
Isn't it like, I didn't play Guild Wars 1, isn't it like Pokemon essentially?
It kind of, yeah. Essentially in Guild Wars 1, the way it worked was you started off with a certain amount of, think of it as trading cards. You started with a basic set of trading cards, and as you did dungeons or as you did PvP or GVG, you were rewarded with rare or very rare pieces that could really wipe the floor of any opponent when you played against them. And essentially it was Pokemon. That's the best way they explain it. And if they did that, that would probably bring in a fun little mini game to guild halls or even just Lion's Arch or something like that.
Okay. I could see that being interesting. Well, we also have like guild versus guild with the guild leaderboards. It's a new PvP game mode, Stronghold. I don't know like what to expect yet from it. They said it's reflective to the Guild Wars 1 DVD game mode. You'll be attacking a guild lord with forces and heroes you recruit on the way to attack your enemy's guild. Which makes it kind of sound more like a MOBA's gameplay since you recruit forces as well. I would love to have it there as long as it's not too big, because I don't want it to become another water field, might stacking, that kind of combat. I want it to be interesting and actually skillful. So if they could spread out the teams, like if you have 15 players and you have 3 parties moving each to a different objective, now that would be good. But if you have to go with 15 players, zerk down a point, and then win the game, I would despise that. I couldn't stand behind it.
I don't think it'll be like the GVG we have now, where it is it is that 15, 20 player lobby smash into each other. And I'm not saying that to diss GVGers. I know it's really organized and there's a lot of thought that goes into it, but I think with the Stronghold game point and the GVG, I think it will kind of go back to the whole. I think what they might do is they might do where it's either 8v8 like the old GVG, or it might be they might do MOBA style and do 5v5, where it's you have one person on one lane and then 2 each on the other lanes, or maybe someone is like you've got split them up and then you've got like one person who's going around recruiting heroes or whatever the equivalent of like jungling or whatever. I could see it being that too, and yeah, it's hard to say what it'll be until we actually see gameplay of it, or until we actually play it ourselves and see how kind of that meta, because there's going to be a completely different meta for Stronghold as opposed to Conquest.
Mobility will probably be very important in that game mode. How does the rest stand on this? Sorry, go ahead, Mayhizzle.
I didn't really GVG that much in Guild Wars 1, but I believe there was points. There was certain areas in the GVG arena where if you captured this point, you had an advantage over the whole field. So my assumption is it's not going to be a straight up Zerg versus Zerg or 8v8 where they just both meet in the middle and they fight. I think there's going to be certain capture points where it gives you an advantage or a vantage point, and you can attack from another route or something like that. So I don't think it's just going to be straight up Zergs.
Yeah, the splitting
really
thing is
hope
what I
so.
kind of really wanted.
Yeah.
If it's just gonna be a whole Zerg now, if it's gonna be something where you can split up, have maybe like a small Havoc squad here, have like a defensive squad here, have a support squad, maybe jump in if like a really mobile group, we can jump in whenever someone needs them. And as for points, yeah, it's probably like, oh, capture this point, maybe it slows down the other team by 5%. Small advantages, but not too huge to like really snowball, but some kind of mechanics to help the underdog kind of come back, a comeback mechanic, if anything.
Potato, you got anything to say on this?
I didn't really look into Stronghold that much, but I'm really interested to play in it. Even if it will be a huge blobby fist or not, I really want to try it out. As far as I understood, it's a PvP mode, and I don't really enjoy the capturing the point. I think this one will drag my attention a lot more. So I'm really interested in the recruiting mobs or whatever that is to help you gain your target, achieve your goal or whatever.
Maybe it'll be like the commander in More vs. World, where he has like a commanding aura around him that gives everyone around him like 20% more health and whatnot. And the enemy group tries to engage, sometimes it'll be better to go for the commander instead of everyone else.
Yeah.
Kind of strategic.
But it's good that you have like one final objective, kill the guild lord, and it puts so much pressure on actually defending the lord than to ignore it.
I think Stronghold is going to be one of those modes where we have to get more info on it before we can really think about how it's going to shake out when it becomes live. I know a lot of this stuff is all speculation for everything, but that's one where it's going to be, we need to see the mechanics of how things work exactly before we can be like, oh yeah, this, and this.
Yeah. Well, we also have like different PvP. They added a new World vs. World borderland that should be much bigger and most diverse map, as it has like its own teams and holding objectives. Like, for example, they have the Earth Keep, which will rise up parts of the ground to defend itself, or the Fire Keep that will provide magma pools for your group to use to travel around. I guess like the caves that you have right now in Edge of the Mist.
To me, it sounded more like they were like platforms in the lava that you could jump on. It didn't really. The vibe I got was they were just shortcut
okay.
platforms.
Okay, no, okay. I must have misheard it then.
Yeah, and then the Earth thing, maybe they raise the platform to like make it into the jumping puzzle to make everything hard for the enemy team.
Well, they said it defends itself, no? Yeah, I guess like jumping puzzles and with falling
Yeah.
damage.
You're like, oh, yeah, now you guys gotta have fun. Here you go. Jumping puzzle time.
Ruins
Kill
the
enemy.
snowfall.
But they said they're going to be rotating these different maps every so often, so I guess it'll keep it kind of fresh here and there.
Well, where did you say every so often? Because I heard rotation, but I didn't
Yeah, I
hear
heard
any
rotation.
details on it.
All I heard was rotation, so I was assuming that maybe they'll rotate the Earth one with the Fire one, and I don't know, maybe the Ice one. Who knows?
Well,
I don't think they'll do that. I think it's more of along the lines of the map will rotate every week. So we'll get the old map, and then next week we'll get the new map, and then it'll go back and forth.
Yeah, like every reset.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It would be you'd have the old Borderland map, and then that 1 week, and then it would rotate to the new one, and then maybe they'll incorporate Edge of the Mist. Like I don't know how that's gonna work, but that's what it sounds like.
As long as it's not at the Edge of the Mist, I'll be happy if it's on the Edge of the Mist, but I won't be happy at the same time.
I hope it's not a karma. Please, no karma trains anymore.
It would probably just be an objective where just capping it really helps out your team. That's it. Nothing more. If you want to go for it, yeah, you just go for it for the special effect or the whatever the defensive mechanic is.
Yeah, like how I understood what they were talking about with the new Borderland map. They did say it was the largest and most diverse map they've ever done. That brings into question, like, how big is this thing? Like, are we talking EB? Are we talking like twice the size of EB? Like, what are we talking when it comes to size? And because if it's really big, if we're talking bigger than EB, then we could see like some crazy stuff involving strategy, just because of how spread out objectives are, or how important strategic aspects are going to be. Because they did also say that they were going to revamp the fundamentals of World v. World as far as defending and whatnot goes. So I mean, that's something we really got to see more on, because there are so many possibilities.
But do you count Edge of the Mist as a Borderland also? Because of that size, it's even bigger then.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, if that gets incorporated or whatever, like I would assume that if they do add Edge of the Mists to this rotation and actually have it count for PPT or whatever, maybe I would assume they would change up how Edge of the Mist works, and they would make it like not karma trainable at all, or the community would just make it not possible because they would be so focused on actually going for objectives and going for whatnot. So you have to consider all of the stuff that will be happening to World v. World, and just the fact that we don't know a lot about how they're going to be changing it up.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they also mentioned other stuff, like you have your own collections that you can build, like crafting masteries, and this will allow you to get precursors. So this is like the scavenger hunt, I assume what they meant, because you start your journey towards your legendary with this. I honestly would feel it's going to be a very, I guess, massive journey. They won't give you just precursors for free.
Yeah, it better be long and tedious. Even if it is tedious, though, it should be, because you're gonna look at that guy and be like, okay, he either bought that thing because he's rich, or put a lot of money into the game, farmed a lot for money to get that, or just took this really long journey to actually get his precursor himself. And yeah, it should be difficult.
Like, what I'm thinking is they might do, and I'm hoping they do it this way, where legendaries, like the old legendaries, you can still buy, you can still sell them, whatever. I'm thinking what they might do with the new ones, at least, is you'll have these collections to build these precursors, but like for these new legendaries themselves, maybe there's another collection or whatever where you have to build it yourself, and you have to get these, and you can't sell them. Maybe this new set is only gotten through this giant quest line or whatever that you go on, this whole whatever it is. And I'm hoping this is one of the things that really got me pumped when they announced new legendaries, is to get these new legendaries, you have to do a lot of challenging things. You have to do skill-based content, activities, things that actually challenge you as a player and that would add prestige to those end result legendaries. That's what I'm really hoping for, because that's one of my biggest beefs with the current legendaries is the fact that you can just buy and sell them, and when you actually do go and build them, it's more of a money game than a skill game. It's more about how much time and resources can you put in this thing, not how much effort and how much skill can you put into building this. That's one thing that I've always hated about the current legendaries, and it's something that I've always hoped they would change. And a new set of legendaries would be the perfect opportunity for them to go around and say, okay, you want to buy a legendary, if you like the looks of these legendaries, you can go ahead and you can buy it off the trading post, or you can buy all the materials you need, and it's easier to get. If you want these legendaries and you want to actually have prestige with these things, then you have to put forth the effort and the player skill to get them. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. That's what I kind of wanted to, because there's not enough things to show prestige in this game. You see, like, back in the beginning, when you saw someone with the Twilight, it's like, okay, that guy put a lot of time because there's not that much stuff in the market, and he probably worked really hard for that legendary. Like, and now it's so common, it's like, okay, that guy probably just put $500 into the game and bought it instantly.
Yeah, it felt really good when the game first came out. I think in the first 3 months I had a Twilight, and it felt good because you ran around and you didn't see that many people with Twilight. Maybe you saw maybe 3 or 4 people, but like Chin is saying, it would be really nice to have it prestigious. Like that guy did this to get that legendary. Man, he's good. But
Yeah.
right now it's kind of like, okay, like you were saying, did he drop a $500 on that Juggernaut? You know, that kind of thing.
But do you feel like it should be a solo thing to do, or do you feel like you can be helped as well?
I think either one will work. I think like it might even be better to have like it be group oriented. Like say with WoW's legendaries, they're all gotten through rating, which is cooperative, challenging group content. I think it might be better to have it be solo, but maybe that could be. Or sorry, I think it would be better to have it be group content. But I could see there being case made for solo. Either way, I don't really care how they would do it this way. I would just want it to be skill based with prestige behind it, something where if you see someone with one of these new legendaries, you know that they are good at what they do, you know that they know what they're doing, and they had to put a lot of skill, a lot of effort towards that legendary, and they didn't just have some rich sugar daddy player who got them a whole bunch of gold or a whole bunch of materials. They didn't have a fat wallet where they just dropped $500 on the game and got it. Something where you can see someone with something that you don't see a lot of people with it, and you can give them props. You have respect for that player's mastery of the game or ability to play the game. That's what I want. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, when the game got released and you saw people with legendaries, you were like feeling those people are kind of special. Now, when you see a person with a legendary, you're being like, he's just like everyone else. It's nothing special.
Okay. I think we kind of all agree on that. What about the new profession? Like, you guys saw the blindfolds. Holy shit!
Yeah.
I love the blindfolds. And then I saw like the character, and I was okay. I'm sold. The animation, the skill, the teleporting in mist, hitting all those characters, and just looking badass. I won.
Alright, everyone. Rip Koroshi's NG.
The idea of those spirits or whatever those was, and swapping the abilities and the utilities sounds really interesting and awesome.
Power of the great legends past. That's what they said. It's I can't wait.
It said you can swap between some kind of combat and to swap to conditions to dominate your foe, something like that.
Yeah, the Revenant sounds really interesting to me. I don't know if I'll drop my warrior for it, but I know for sure I'm going to try it out. This thing, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of how they would implement this class's skills and like its professional mechanics and this whole channeling thing and how it affects things. It sounds a lot like Elementalist attunement switching or NG kit switching. But another thing that I thought about is, what if, say, they have, okay, we'll take what's a weapon they have? Sword. Say, okay,
Yeah.
we know they can use swords. So one of the ways I was thinking that this could possibly be done is, okay, so you have this set of skills on the sword, and they're channeling a certain legend or whatever, and they've got what I was thinking a possibility for this is they have the same weapon skills regardless of regardless of whatever legend they're channeling. It's like the base effect, the base mechanic of the weapon skill that they're using at the time is the same, but the legends that they channel each give all of these skills a secondary effect. Like say if you're channeling Malix or whatever, the demon guy, your auto attack applies like this is gonna be ridiculous since I know people like applies like 3 conditions every time you attack or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're channeling the Jalis guy, the dwarf guy, assuming his theme is like defense or something, maybe every time you auto attack you get protection. Like something like that, where it's the same animation, it's the same base mechanic, but it gets a different secondary effect depending on which legend you're channeling. And like your utilities could all be the same, like that, and stuff like that. Or maybe you're like, I don't know. I'm just brainstorming on what it could be, but that's what I was thinking, something like that.
I have a feeling that like it could look like somewhat like Lich form, where we could have our base weapons still be the same, like you were saying, Shin, but our utilities might go away and get replaced with a set utilities for that form or for that channel. And it could change up how we use our weapons for Revenant.
Yeah, I mean I like the whole utility and heal, all of that swapping. Like I could see that, like they have the capability to do that for sure, but it might be like there's more. Maybe instead of having your 1 bar of hot swapping where you hot swap them each, you actually like this would get a little cumbersome with the UI, I think, and this is why I'm thinking it might not be like this, but like you could set up your individual utilities for each individual spirit you channel, and that way you have control over what utilities you're getting when you swap to those. Maybe that's how that works.
Yeah. Oh, would actually be crazy. You could think of it exactly what Shin said, like the attunements. You know, you press your F1 and then you have like those new utilities.
It could be like Toolkit. Yeah.
We also we saw like some of the arts, and we know they can wield a sword. We also know they can dual wield sword from the images we saw, and possibly a spear or a staff. So there is a lot of weapon possibilities for that class, and fuck, I just need to see more abilities. After seeing that first ability, I need to know how the rest of the abilities look like. Do we get all those fancy moves where we're super mobile, or maybe we're like hybrid and we're not as mobile, but we can like dance around our opponents instead of like just being able to move really fast.
That teleport skill that Ritlock uses in that trailer, it's just like, oh my god, it's killing spree. Ah. Because rogues in WoW have essentially it's like an end talent or something like that. It used to be the ultimate talent in, I think, their combat talent tree, where it does that. You teleport between targets and you stab them or whatever, but it's really fast and really rapid. And I'm like, wow, that is exactly what that is, but looks way more badass.
But if you think about the skill, does that look as invincibility, or would it be like the miss from an elementalist? Or can you actually interrupt it? Let's say if I time my interrupt at that moment, could I interrupt a revenant while he's casting that? That's because if it's an invulnerability, that's going to be such a strong ability. If it's just invisibility, then we can interrupt it, you know. And even if it's not invisibility and this is just a visual smoke, and you can still interrupt it, then I feel the skill will also become a lot more balanced in a way.
Maybe it's something similar to distortion, like evading. And while you're doing that, you're evading attacks.
Yeah, I could see it being equivalent to distortion, where you're evading attacks and you're evading interrupts and stuff like that, but you're still taking damage from things like retail or confusion or whatever.
I would like that. I feel it can't be a pure invulnerability. If you saw how long that lasted, that's a very long invulnerability.
Could be an elite as well.
Yeah, there's that too. It could be an elite.
It really depends on what the elite will provide beyond that. Although you have also the thief elite, which is just a stun for 2 seconds, so it doesn't have to be all that crazy to be an elite.
Yeah, and there's also, you got to remember, like, the Kaith skills in that Living Story episode 7, I think it was. That was kind of the same thing where you would go perma invisible and you would just like you would auto attack, but you would teleport to your target, and then you could target something else and do the same thing, and like it was kind of the same thing. It just wasn't automatic.
Okay. Um. Yeah,
I think
I don't know how I stand on it because in the Living Story itself, I haven't been like that far yet because I'm slowly working through my Living Story right now to build up. So I haven't had the experience yet with the new skills. So my experience with that, I can't comment on it.
okay, well, no spoiler. Like one of the episodes, you relive Kaith's stuff and you get Kaith's abilities, and her what's in her elite slot is the skill where you become permanently invisible. Attacking does not reveal you while the duration of the skill is going, and whenever you go and like everything, all the other skills are the same for her except for her auto attack. While this thing is running, her auto attack will teleport you to whatever you use it on, and it's like a backstab basically, except it's a teleporting backstab, and it will every time you use it while this elite is going on, you will teleport to whatever you're targeting and stab it.
Okay, that sounds actually pretty cool. I really need
Think,
to like work on that as fast as possible.
yeah, think of it as Thief Steal, but at the end of your steal, instead of a mug, it's a backstab.
Yeah, yeah. And this
Okay.
goes on for how long does it last? I think it's like what, 15
10
seconds?
seconds?
10 seconds?
10 or 15.
Do you guys still have anything to add to the Revenant class? We don't really have that much information about it. We just saw it in the trailer, and other than being the third heavy class.
The one thing that you could probably compare it to, coming from Guild Wars 1, was the Dervish. The Dervish was a class that not really channeled, but could channel certain abilities. Actually, you took a form that essentially buffed your stats, and essentially is what the Revenant does. Dervish had the ability to become an avatar of the five gods at the time. You could become Balthazar, Duena, and they all had their own stat combinations to where if you became Balthazar, you applied holy damage and you got a boost of power. And if you became Duena, you got defense and healing. If you became Grenth, you got poison and chill. So there's a possibility that we can see something like that, to where all it was an elite. That's what it was. And then it changed your form just a little bit, or you got an aura, and your stats just got boosted.
Kind of sounds like stance dancing for warriors in WoW, where you get a different passive effect based on what you are, what stance you take.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Okay. Well, beyond I think like the Revenant, we had the mastery system, which is, from what I understood, it was a account-based PvE progression system because they didn't mention anything about PvP, and this was obtained by purely doing challenges in the jungle, like group challenges, solo challenges, also exploring hard to reach points. With the glider, they also showed off in the video. I'm not sure if they said anything about achievements. I think I made a note something about achievements also rewarding points, but I'm not 100% certain about this if I misheard it. But it doesn't seem to be like something that you can grind like the world experience you have.
Yeah, I could
It
see
could be
this.
the same though.
Yeah, someone actually when I was streaming, I think actually it had to have been yesterday, but someone was asking me like if it could be like the World of the World masteries, and like at the time it was all, you know, the whole hype, still letting it sink in. And then now that I've had time to think about it, they could very easily do something very similar to what they have with the World of the World masteries, where it's, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be grinding because they wouldn't do like World XP or whatever, but instead of having these points come from ranks, you would have them come from doing these things, doing these challenging pieces of content or whatever, and then you would have these lines, in which case or in these lines in which you sink these points into and get the different things, like with the hang gliding or Mordrum kill. Like you could, like there's, I forgot where it was. I think Colin said it during the panel, where it's like you could tear the bark off of a heavily armored Morgem or whatever. Like maybe that is a mastery line in a UI that looks very similar to the World of the World mastery UI, where it's these blocks of you put so many points in them, and every slot you put in, just like with World of the World masteries, you get some other perk specific to that mastery. So, like with the hang gliding, maybe the hang gliding would be the equivalent. Like you have like Siege Goal mastery in World of the World. Maybe there's in this new mastery system, there's a hang gliding line, and that has the slots where you put points that give you different perks for hang gliding. Maybe that's what this system is. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's what they said about like the hang gliding. They said once you master it, they're just gonna be like think about riding the wind, being able to ride the wind when you're in air, probably like a speed boost kind of thing. So I could see it like being a progression system for that certain mastery.
I hope it's going to be like active mastery, so not just passive where it just increases your speed by 15%, but actually giving you extra abilities. As the hang glider, like normally you could not reach to a far point, but if you have a certain mastery, you can like give yourself a flight boost, you know, going up higher, and stuff like that that will actually actively change your stuff. If
Well,
you
like-
understand what I mean.
Yeah, and actually I was gonna say, like, we know they can do that because, like, if you look at the arrow cart mastery, you look at pretty much any of the siege masteries in World of World, you do get new skills. Like the arrow cart, you get a fourth shot when you get so far in that line. I think it's the battering ram, or no, the oil mastery. You get a little defensive bubble that you can throw up if you get so far into that line. Like, I could very easily see them doing that.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do.
And there's a possibility you can see something like, well, you can't get to this certain spot, like you were saying earlier. You can't get to these certain areas without that certain mastery. Well, it could be something like, well, you can't get to this platform until you have maybe 10 seconds of flight time unlocked, if they have it, something like that. Or you can't get to this certain raid boss if you don't have this certain amount of mastery.
That would actually be really cool because you're pulling in some like Zelda gameplay at that point. Because like, oh hey,
Yeah, that's
you can,
exactly.
yeah, like you can see this thing, but oh hey, you don't have the hook shot or whatever, so you can't get there now. But come back later when you've mastered more things, or you've gotten more mastery, and now you can reach it. Like I would be really interested in that type of stuff. I loved that type of thing in Zelda.
Well, we do know the jungle itself has 3 parts. So maybe like that's how they're gonna do it. You can't continue to the next part or the higher part, or you can't even go to the heart of the jungle unless you have certain masteries unlocked. And then they can actually kind of gate the progression and make sure that you go through certain areas before you can reach the next area.
Yeah, but in doing that, it doesn't feel grindy because you feel like you are progressing towards something because it's actually opening up more gameplay for you. It's giving you more options, more ways of playing in the jungle, more ways of moving around. And it's not just like, okay, I got to get so many stat points, I got to get so much gold, or I got to get so much, etc., etc. It's actually like, it's noticeable progression for how you're playing the game because you can't access a new area until you go and do these other activities, and then you get the rewards from those activities. You put them in your masteries, and then now you have access to this new area.
They somewhat did that in Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars 2, we never got to experience that for PvE because as it is right now, on a brand new character, you can, if you have someone with you, you can run someone that's level 2 to a raw if you stealth the whole way. In Guild Wars 1, you couldn't do that. You could have someone run you through each mission that then unlocked the areas for you, but from the start, you could not run to the high-end areas. You had to have someone that could do the mission for you, run the mission for you, or run you through the zones. They did that in Nightfall in Guild Wars 1, where you wanted to go to the Desolation. Well, guess what? You have to do this mission in order to unlock the Desolation. Also, guess what? You have to kill this Worm Queen to get the buff that allows you to survive in the Desolation. So it's something like that that can happen.
Well, I think at least it'll make it less overwhelming because having like such a major new area and you just walk in there, and if everything is unlocked, you'll be like, where the hell do I go? But if they have like some sort of progression, you at least feel, I guess it feels more natural to progress to the area, and and it becomes a lot more interesting, because I feel if I got like a lot, or like such a massive area, I wouldn't even do everything, because I wouldn't know where to start.
Oh yeah, and there have been a number of people who have stopped by when I've been doing whatever, streaming or have talked to me and say, yeah, I'm loving the game so far, but like I feel so overwhelmed. Like I need a clear path, and these zones don't give me anything like that, and I'm so lost. Like there have been a lot of people who've said that they're just overwhelmed, and yeah, it's having it kind of metered out like that could very well help with that.
Do you have anything to say on this, Potato?
To be honest, not really.
Okay.
I
So
don't have anything to add on this.
okay, then like finally, I think the last major thing they said was lore. They are going to do hidden access for lore, finding out areas for hidden civilizations. You have to master their language before you can actually understand it. The old race, the Mersat, now has gotten available bacteria, and it looks like they will become your allies. Which before I don't think they were allies. From what I understood.
No, they weren't. They were probably the main people towards the end of the game in the first campaign of Guild Wars 1. And I've seen it in Koroshi's chat, I've seen it in Shin's chat, and I've seen it in Wing's chat, especially Choxie's, is that a lot of Guild Wars 1 people that still play Guild Wars 1 that haven't come to Guild Wars 2, they're mainly the PvE people, and they don't want to come to Guild Wars 2 because there isn't this nostalgia kind of feeling for Guild Wars 2 that connects Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2. And I think Heart of the Thorns is actually going to finally do that, to where it connects where Guild Wars 1, Eye of the North left off, and finally connect, hey, what happened to Gwent? What happened to um, her egg? What happened to her child that is supposedly still alive? Um, and what happened to the Mersat? In End of Guild Wars 1, prophecy, or not prophecies, the War in Kryta, which was kind of like Living Story. Um, there was one last Mersat. It was Lazarus the Dyer. But of course, in Heart of the Thorns trailer, we saw 3 of them. So according to lore, there's actually an island where they come from, which is Isle of Janthier. So will we get to see that isle later on? I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see if they remain our allies. Are they using us to find something that they wanted in Guild Wars 1, which was the Scepter of Ore, which a character from Guild Wars 1 apparently has? A lot of questions about it.
Like one thing, I didn't play Guild Wars 1. I've only done like wiki research on a lot of the Guild Wars 1 stuff. But one thing that really stood out to me in the trailer, and it kind of shook me, is like, are these even Mersat? Like I couldn't tell off the bat. Um, they okay, like their wings from the first game are all black, and they have this very evil purple, like almost Krakatorik look to the. Oh wait, no, those are Morganites, aren't they?
No, well, the Marganites were purple, and then the Marsat actually had like kind of constructs, kind of like, think of them as robots.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
they were called the Jade, and essentially they were giant purple warriors, is what they were.
Okay. Well, at any rate, I saw some screenshots of I think even Lazarus the Dyer or something like that. I saw a figure that looks very similar to the Mersat that we saw in the trailer, and they have these black wings. And then I look at the ones in the trailer, and they're all like golden, glowing, like white, and like the opposite of the kind of the vibe that I got from the Guild Wars 1 stuff. Do you think maybe there was something that happened when they phased out of reality that like changed them, or like I don't know. As someone who's not as into the lore as I would like to be, or someone who's not as knowledgeable in the lore as I'd like to be, like what is the possibility for that whole thing?
It's hard because for some reason, I get the feeling that they just made the Marsat look a lot different just for Guild Wars 2 purposes. But it's true, they did not look the same as far as what they looked like in Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars 1, they just look like a floating figure with black wings, and they all look like mages. Um, in Guild Wars 2, in the trailer, they look a lot more elegant. They look like almost godlike because they have energy-like figures. Um, so it's a possibility that something happened to them over the 250-year span that Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 takes place. Um, Maybe they finally found something that Glint found, and it granted them some kind of power. There's that gap right now with the lore that we don't know about. What happened to them? Why are they all of a sudden trying to help us? Because in lore, they actually, the Mersat, the Seers, the Jotun, and I believe the dwarves apparently had history of the first Elder Dragon rising before the gods, or as the gods came, or something like that. So the Mersat knew of it, and they left Tyria. They left to go to a different dimension or another planet or something like that. And they didn't help the other races. So why all of a sudden are they helping us? Are they using us, like I was saying earlier? Are they trying to find something that Glint left behind that would grant them ultimate power or something? I don't know.
What about the Seers? Like what happened to the Seers? They fought the Mersat, and did they get extinct, or is there still a Seer around that we could see?
There in Guild Wars 1, there was a couple Seers left, but the Mersat essentially kind of drove them to be extinct. They were think of them as the same as the Mersat, just kind of like they're um, just different people. They floated. They look like the best way to explain them is they look like kind of like a bat figure, but with humanoid.
Okay.
That's the best way to explain them.
Well,
But they're there. I believe that there's still one or two alive.
I remember like seeing the skill point underwater where it looks like a creature that had wings as well. I'm not sure.
Largos.
Yeah,
Is a
you can
Largos?
compare him to the Largos. You
Okay.
could compare him to the Largos. Think of it as a Largos with his hands crossed all the time. That's the best way to compare him to.
Okay.
But they're also the Forgotten, the snake dudes.
Yeah, the Forgotten were Glint's guardians. They actually, the Forgotten were all kinds of things. They were the gods' guardians, and then they became the guardians of the mist. And I think currently, Guild Wars 1 Lord, they are supposedly guarding Abaddon's prison, or they were. Now they guard Cormier's domain, which she controls.
And like, how do you feel about the languages? Like the steps that you have to take to learn about these civilizations?
I could see those like giving you access to new areas and whatnot. Like you decipher text and maybe it could be something like decipher text, which gives you like these hints or whatever to secret areas that have a lot of really cool stuff in them, or like basically just another way of exploring the world, another way of finding new secret stuff and getting access to it. But you like almost like the hang glider stuff, only instead of physically like having to reach it with flight mastery or whatever, maybe it's you have to decipher it and then read some text in front of some slab or something that then parts, and then you can go inside this cave or something like that. Maybe access like that way.
Yeah, like I was saying, like the Indiana Jones kind of thing. You would think it'll be like a more specific route to find these things instead of stumbling upon them randomly while you're exploring. Then you look at it too. You look at the bottom of freaking Silver Waste. There's a huge ass cave down there. I didn't even know. So they have a lot to work with too. If they have that kind of option to be like some ruins or some mystic cave or whatnot.
Well, they could even mix it in with the mastery, just like what Shin and I were talking about as far as like it being kind of Zelda related. Maybe while you're exploring, you come across a cave with forgotten writing on it, and your mastery in forgotten knowledge isn't high enough. So you have to go explore and find more, forgotten language. And once you have a high enough understanding of the language, you come back, unlock that room or that cave, and hey, there's a new mini dungeon, or there's a challenge in there. Maybe there's a raid boss in there. It's one of those things where there's unlimited possibilities of what they can do with language or things that you stumble across in while exploring.
There's one thing that I don't think we've actually touched on at all this entire discussion regarding the new PV stuff, the new jungle. It's how big are these zones? How much new land are we going to be able to explore? Like, there's no telling how big the canopy, the core, the floor, like any of that stuff is. How expansive is this stuff going to be?
It looked massive in the trailer. Like, it looked amazing. Oh, yeah. Holy shit! I was like, is this Guild Wars 2? I never seen something like this. This looks I want to be there. Like,
When Ridlock opened those gates, I was like, oh,
Oh,
oh.
yeah,
The
you just got.
adventure begins.
Sometimes you just forget like how beautiful Guild Wars 2 actually is because we just go through stuff and do our own thing instead of looking at how it looks like around you.
Yeah, that's why periodically that's why the first time I leveled through the game and why periodically I like to just go out and look around and just do the exploring stuff on certain characters is because it is a really good looking game. There's a lot of attention to detail. So it's nice to be able to go through and just appreciate how big, like just how detailed and how well done the environments are.
Do we actually know what actually lived in the Maguma jungle? Or what actually is supposed to live there? In the histories and stuff?
In Guild Wars 1, what used to live there was the Centaurs, which actually Ventari used to live there. Um, there was the home of the Shining Blade, which were the rebels at the time that saved Lion's Arch, which now Queen Jenna is one of the descendants of the Shining Blade. There were plant figures. There the Aloes, the gosh, what are they? Actually, in the trailer you see them. They look spider-like with eggs on them. Those existed in the in Guild Wars 1, but they were called something else. I forget what they were. Um, Spiders. We'll probably see a lot of spiders. You'll probably see a lot of husks. Kind of TA related things. You'll probably see a lot of stuff like that.
Don't
Okay.
forget all that the new crazy stuff that we're gonna see, like those the bark monsters and all those crazy things from Morgemoth.
It's funny because you saw that figure that looked like a big old bark monster um, that was holding a dream thistle greatsword. I was kind of thinking to myself, is that actually what Mordremoth intended the Savari to look like? There's a possibility that we could run into a bunch of those guys.
Yeah, well, and like the other three, that there might be that's without the Ventari tablet, where that Sofari is actually they don't know good. You know, they're just pure evil and used by the dragon.
Isn't there a chance of there being like multiple trees, like not just Pale Tree and then another? Like, aren't there could be like, or couldn't there be like dozens of those trees?
Yeah, Ronan in Guild Wars Run, or the lore on the wiki, you can read it. It said that Ronan came across a cave with a bunch of seeds. That there was tons of seeds, which essentially he took one and it became the pale tree. So there's a possibility that there's tons of pale trees, and there's tons of different Savari looking, different categories for them.
Well, we did see like the hate towards Sylvari, so I really want to see how they go with the story. At first, I wasn't as interested in the lore of Guild Wars until I started reading into it, until I started asking about it, and then you see how awesome actually the lore is of Guild Wars and how much thought goes behind it. And they even mentioned that all this was planned long before.
Yeah, like coming from or as someone who's been really big into the Warcraft universe, finding out all these things about the Guild Wars universe has been very pleasantly surprising. Like there's a lot of really deep stuff here. It's nice meaty stories to get into.
Oh, it's really deep. It's kind of funny because a lot of people don't really realize that Guild Wars 1, the first three campaigns, were actually purely just about Abaddon. And that's just one god. Because in the first campaign, Abaddon influenced the Lich Lord who sunk Ra. Um, in the second campaign, which was Cantha, he influenced Shiro Tagachi, which was a warrior or assassin. And in the third one, you actually went to Abaddon's domain and you fought him, and you got to fight the two bosses from the first campaigns again together at the same time, which was really a pain in the ass. But you could probably see something like that to where, and I have a feeling they'll probably do that after we finish with Heart of Thorns. If it ends Mordremoth, you'll see us kind of slide into the next dragon, which would most likely be Dormag, because you see a lot of Dormag at the moment. You see Sons of Sonir. There's a dungeon that's level 80 with them, so there's a possibility we can see that.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. Like, what is okay? If I had to ask each one of you, what's your most favorite feature of this from what we know now?
Picture Necro.
What about
I'm
you,
just really
Mayhizzle?
excited.
I think it's the lore. I really look forward to it because I was a big Guild Wars 1 lore buff, and I've lost touch with it because you don't see too much lore in Guild Wars 2. But now with a living story, you see a lot of it, and they're finally starting to connect Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2.
And Potato? Staff Ranger?
I know it will sound kind of not possible, but I really, really hope that because we're gonna have a droid, I really hope we're gonna be able to transform our forms, to a tiger or anything like that.
It's possible. I could see that.
Wild Druid.
I don't really think they're gonna make it possible since you already have a pet. And
Maybe.
it doesn't really fit like transforming and changing shifts while you have a pet.
Or fuse
I-
into it.
I just thought of an idea though. What if you channel the spirit of your pet to transform into an avatar of that animal's spirit? What about that?
I'm gonna be a Moa? What the fuck?
So what you want to see is a Coden. You want to see a pet Coden.
Oh my
If I
god.
want to be a Moa, I can go to a Mesmer.
Well, just something similar to like the Norn elites. Something similar to that, only it would be based on or related to your active pet. Like I don't think they would make something as ridiculous looking as like some Moa thing, or if they did, it wouldn't have the derpy beak or anything like that. But
If you have ever seen Potato's pet, I don't think anyone would want to transform into that.
That's also something that came into my mind. Well, there are two things. One of them is also about the transformation and all of that. I have a theory about really like Rampage is one. You're connecting to your pet and basically you're transforming to something, but it's also your part of your pet. That means if anything happens to you or your pet, you're both suffering from that situation. And the second thing is, since we're getting new monsters and all that stuff, are we gonna get new pets for the ranger? And if so, what's gonna happen to the other ones which are not being used, like the drakes, like the moas, like the devours, most of the bears, like 70% of the pets are not being used.
that kind of already the case right now. Like, aren't there a lot of pets that just aren't used?
So that's he meant. Maybe they're gonna be changed or removed. But I think people want them just to have as a collection. It doesn't even have to be useful. It's still a collection that you can get, you know?
My main question, it's basically for me, is if they're gonna add new pets, will it be better than the CM mode? Because I found the CM mode fitting for everything. You have stealth, you have boons, you have stealth. Like, you have everything on this pet.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I hope actually they will add new pets that are specific to Maguma Jungle only. It'll be interesting to see what they can come up with.
I would imagine an area with new fauna would give you new pet access for rangers.
And what about you, Shin? What's your most favorite feature?
Oh, I'm as a PBX player, this is all just like amazing. Like, I'm stoked for all. I guess for right now, this will probably change once we get more info, but definitely the new legendaries. The new legendaries and what all is entailed with those, but also what the new specialization for warriors is. What is happening to my main class. That's the thing I've always been interested in with any sort of changes is what's happening to warrior, because I love playing the content with my warrior. I like how the warrior works. It's just warrior's gameplay is what makes me have so much fun with the rest of the game, and I want to know how that gameplay is changing or what new ways in which I can play the content are going to be available to me. That's what I'm most stoked for, is what is changing with the warrior, what are the specializations, and then also like what the new legendaries and how they're going to be achieved are. That's what I'm most excited, most interested for information wise. As for like just content wise, I'm stoked to see new Borderland, new PvE zones, all that fun stuff. Like, I'm excited for everything, but I guess top two would be new legendaries and warrior spec.
Okay. No super adventure map.
Oh well, Super
Oh my
Veg-
god. Why,
Super
man?
Veg
Where
Effects.
is it?
I miss this stuff.
It's, I speculated on this a little bit. Like, I could see them doing it. I'm not expecting it, but I could see them doing it to tide us over until the expansion happens. They could have Super Vegebox in the game, maybe.
Hey,
I have a
Nat.
feeling they'll do that.
Hey, Nat. Listen. Please.
We have
Okay.
been suffering for long enough.
Been
But
almost
yeah.
a year now?
Yeah,
It's
maybe,
past
maybe.
a year, I think.
Yeah, I think it's been. Let's see, September. It's been over a year. It's been over a year. Wow, it's been over a year without SAB. Oh,
Yeah.
anyway,
Bad
I think
times.
with you have April coming up, so there's a possibility that we could get it again.
yeah,
Nah.
and also like Josh Foreman and his team, like I'm sure they were doing jumping puzzles for the new expansion and whatnot. But what about a little bit of other time? Maybe they decided, hey, we could give SAB Worlds 3 and 4.
I want to
I'd
see
hope.
it happen again.
I mean, we do have the balance change coming up, which is going to change quite a bit of things as far as the how much power might gives us and everything.
Well, they need to change a lot more when it comes to that. Like, there's so easy access to might in certain classes. Like, Ellie can just do it in their natural way. They don't have to give up anything for it. Warriors with longbow can stack up might for days, and they don't even have to do anything active for it either.
Well, just because the patch is small, like just because the balance patch isn't changing a whole lot of stuff, doesn't mean they can't start picking up their pace with balance changes. I mean, track record notwithstanding, they could easily start now and start updating a bit more frequently with smaller changes. Because I mean, the stuff that's coming in this balance patch it's big enough to change things, but it's not like a complete overhaul. It's shaving basically. It's shaving with a lot of things, or slight buffing. And I mean, we could see them just do that for a bit, and maybe a few, like maybe like a month and a half down the line, change something else, and then like, well, we'll see how that goes.
Well, I think we should actually start to conclude this because we've been talking for almost 1.5 hours now before we make it happen for another 2 hours.
That
We've gone over pretty much everything, right? We've spoken about every single new feature, what we want to have. I think it was a good discussion.
oh yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Does anyone else
Yeah.
have to add something, or?
Not too much here.
You know
No,
what?
I'm good.
We actually never introduced ourselves at the start.
Wow.
GG.
Wow.
We have Choxie, our necromancer, World versus World. Choxie, say hi. Mayhizzle, our PvE lore enthusiast. Is that the way to say it?
Yep. How's it going?
Potato, our slacker. No, it's our ranger, World versus World. You're not as much into SPP, but that's basically because of customizations, from what I understand.
Being limited.
Yeah, being limited. Well, hopefully that'll change as well in the future. I would love to see like more ways of building up your character in SPVP. And Shin, also one of my favorite streamers, main warrior player, World versus World roamer. You also play a lot of PvE on your stream. You have anything to say, Shin?
Why, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the handsome gentleman who has been unnamed this entire discussion.
Yeah, me too. I want to redo.
Okay.
Do the whole discussion over again.
Okay,
Our
let's
late
start over.
introduction. GG, rip. It's a professional podcast, please.
Please.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'll close it off. So thanks everyone for joining, and I hope everybody enjoys the way we discuss this, and we could do this more often. I feel it's really interesting, especially when we get more reveals. It doesn't
Yeah,
have to be
definitely.
as long, but we can have it more focused on certain aspects.
Make it a podcast.
Yeah, perfect.
Hype train to Heart of Thorns.
Hype train.
It's already left the planet.
It left the solar system, according to Reddit.